All right, friends, we're back with your favorite podcast show of the week. It's Location Weekly. It's episode number 603, and we're recording on January the 17th, live from New York. We're together in the same room.
I can see
you. So hanging out at Aubriana's office here at Samsung, and I'm in town for the NRF, National Retail Federation show. So we thought, let's just do this in person. So
here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah. So good to see you.
How are you?
I'm good. I am good. It's been a busy, start to the year and just hitting the ground running, as you know, since you're here for NRF. Next week, you're back doing other things in Toronto, like celebrating your birthday.
Yes.
But yeah, it's been a great 2023 so far.
Yeah, it's been hectic, busy,
Very.
Crazy already, and I feel like the month's almost gone, which it kind of is. But
yeah.
So we have a good show, normal 4 stories, a range of things that we want to cover off. We're going to go around the world like we usually do. So Aubriana will start us off with a little Swedish love.
Swedish delight. Isn't that like a candy?
That's a Turkish delight.
Turkish delight. Ignore me. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So McDonald's actually is launching this interesting campaign in Sweden, and they are unlocking these old deals. So there's a lot of talk around inflation that's happening, or as I like to call it, eggflation. Seems like the price of eggs is soaring. And so in order to kind of combat this, they've come up with a creative campaign where they are allowing consumers to unlock previous deals from years past, going all the way back to 2009, using Google Street Maps. And they have worked with the NordDB, that's the agency of record that they're working with here, and they're using Google Street View to allow people to find and unlock these previous offers. So, they promoted this campaign through a few different media options, right? They have like their digital and physical out of home, alongside some film, audio, and social media advertising. And they also recruited what they're calling a geoguessing champion, Matthias McMullen, who's also Swedish, to promote this on his TikTok. Because I was very curious, well, how are they going to get the word out about this, right? So now they're trying to say, like, if you're trying to save a few bucks, you can go through this whole process and you can search and find in the Google Street Maps through the campaign and see if you can unlock a deal. You find the year that it kind of coincides with, and you can take that deal and get the same deal, right? And, this is fun. I think that it seems like a lot of work to save a few dollars on a value meal, on supersizing or whatever they have that they're promoting and you can find. But I think it's fun. It's interactive. I like that they're using the location of prior out-of-home campaigns and kind of reenacting what's been already put out into the world. But I do think that this really limits the pool of people who would probably interact with this type of a campaign. And it just seems like there might be a more straightforward way of doing that, including just putting out real digital out-of-home tied to what maybe was there previously, or having kind of pop-ups that could drive to that. But I think it's creative, so I will give them that idea. And I like that they are kind of using the current economic state to their favor. What do you think?
Yeah, so I agree with a lot of what you said. I think, first of all, how do we become geoguessers?
We should be the ultimate geoguessers.
We should be the ultimate geoguessers, I think. So that's my next career goal, is to be a geoguesser. I like it in that, there's the gamification element of running around trying to find these things and unlocking them, Pokemon Go style. It's the kind of thing, though, like, I almost think that, we've talked a lot about the metaverse lately. This is what should be in the metaverse.
Yeah.
Like, bring back your nostalgic campaigns in the metaverse. You got TikTok guy here promoting this. He can drive people to, your metaverse, installation, and then you can go find these little campaigns and unlock them, and still then drive the traffic back to the store for the redemption. But, it seems like a lot of spend from a media point of view in out of home and other things, and I'm not sure, how much that's going to benefit them. So I think they could have done this in a metaverse play, redemption in store, and actually started to build a new audience. That might have been a little more effective. But
yeah, I geoguess, you're right.
It's fun. All right. So that's our first one. Second story is a really short story, which I just found interesting because I travel a lot, you travel a lot, And Delta has made an announcement that Wi-Fi will now be free, completely free, on all flights for their members. So if you have the app, the Delta app, and you're flying on Delta, and they have your information, your profile, and all of that, you now get free Wi-Fi, or you soon will get free Wi-Fi. So up until then, you've had to pay for it to use it, or use your points to redeem points to use the Wi-Fi. For non-members, it's still going to be $10 flat fee. But I think this is interesting, and the reason I keyed into this is I flew Air Canada to come here to New York. There's Wi-Fi on the plane, but it's cheap. It's not cheap. It's super expensive, right? Mm-hmm. For an hour flight, to pay whatever it is, $10, $15 for Wi-Fi for an hour. This is you want customers coming back. You want frequent flyers. On your things. Wi-Fi should be a staple now that people are working, and it should be free. And I love that they're doing this. And I'm intrigued to see if other airlines are going to follow suit now, because how much of a moneymaker is this really for them? It can't be that much.
No, I don't think it's that much at all. And my one question here is, why did it take them so long to even think of this? It seems like it should have been table stakes for a long time, especially for those frequent flyer loyalty members. I fly Delta a lot, actually. Yeah. And so we always get the free messaging, but that's it. And half the time that doesn't work. And as you mentioned, by the time you have an hour flight, by the time you're at that 10,000 feet, have access to the Wi-Fi, key in your credit card information. You get maybe 25 minutes of airtime to be able to use it. So it's kind of pointless. So I think that using this as an upgrade or as a feature to get people to buy into loyalty or, Delta isn't the cheapest airline. You can usually get less expensive tickets. So as a perk, it is something that, would draw consideration. So yes, about time.
About time. Alrighty.
All right. So let's go to a data story. Shopify, the e-commerce platform, which many of us are familiar with, is trying to look at other avenues to grow its revenue. And now they're looking to help their retailers deliver targeted ads. So they have this recently announced partnership with Meta and Google where they're allowing retailers to identify who their main consumers are and then reach potential customers. And what I mean by that is that really they're taking a Shopify audience, so a retailer's first-party data, and they're putting it within, let's say Google or Meta, and then they're able to go after those, probably a lookalike audience that is mirroring their frequent buys, recent buys, and market for. So Google has noted that this is not new, right? They have been allowing this, for a while, but now it's like a Shopify, I would say, pipe stream. So the data can flow from a Shopify account into Google and into Meta. So retailers might sometimes be hesitant to contribute this type of data, especially knowing that it could be used by other retailers, even potentially their competitors, right? But I think that they are saying that now more and more, because people are starting to step back on their spending, they're starting to say hey, inflation, I've got to cut back on certain things, that they are trying to really reach those that are more in market. So it's more this is going to hopefully help offset some of those, the curbed spending that they're seeing by being able to target and reach more of those that are likely to convert based on this type of data. So I think that this is interesting. And I almost saved this story from a personal note just because I was thinking about a lot of times we have the idea of, is there a world in which this first party data would be willing to be shared between retailers, between competitors? How can we utilize that in a privacy centric and anonymous way, but still go after those and create those contextual opportunities for consumers to be matched with advertisers? So I like this, and I would be hopeful that we can see more of this, even though this isn't necessarily new. It's not new for anybody, right? We've been using first-party data, lookalike audiences, all of these things for a while now, but just to be able to have those pipes and enable a more seamless and flexible infrastructure on one hand, as well as just maybe the opportunity opening up for more and more customer acquisition. So having that scale available, I think, is important. So.
Yeah, I agree with, again, what you're saying. But for me, there's a couple of additional points. Number one, I think that with the loss of, the mobile data that we've been talking about, right, and, being able to track people and build audiences based on that, we need to shift over to transaction data and other things, behavioral data, to fill that gap. And so I think there's a play here for them in sort of being one of those players that's doing that. they had a huge booth at NRF talking about just their data. And so I wandered through that, and it was full. Like there was people there all the time trying to understand what is Shopify doing here. How are we as retailers going to play in this? Do we want to share our data in this? So there was certainly a lot of buzz and discussion at the conference around this. I think also, what's old is new again, right? So if you think back to 7, 8 years ago, when we were doing these shows, and you had like all of those retailer consortiums around credit, payment processing, like Currency and all those things, Dan Dodge and company, and all those people. So I think in a way, it's interesting that it's Shopify that's doing this, as opposed to here's a bunch of merchants that have agreed to work together and kind of collaborate on data. You know what I mean? So I think it'll be interesting to see who actually is going to play with this and allow their data to go into this. I mean, from my side of things, is like on my startup ground level, we would love to have access to this data to layer into what we're doing, right? So,
and I think that it's just not new, is what I'm saying. Is that I think it is the rules of the game are changing, right? That's what's changing. But there are other companies, I think of like Alliant Audience Data, right? They've had this co-op and opt-in data centric play from an audience standpoint that's been there for a while. But I think that there's so many opportunities for platforms like Shopify to start playing in this space. And I think retailers, like you said, are open to it, or else they're going to be very limited to who they can reach. So
there you go. All right, on to our final story now. This is an interesting one. So Apple has announced a new product called Business Connect. And so for any business out there, that has physical locations and things like that, we're all familiar with claiming our business on Google Maps and managing our listings and our phone numbers and addresses and updating those things and all of that. And there's a whole industry of companies within the LBMA circles and beyond, guys like Rio SEO and Yext and Sochi and on and on and on. There's lots of them that play in that space. And so what's really interesting is Apple Business Connect is their play now, where you can go and claim your business, claim your place, create a card, manage and update it as you see fit. You can add photos and header images and logos and all those kinds of things. And you can start to push out offers related to your listing, which is also very interesting. And so obviously Apple's been making a huge play around enhancing their mapping platform, going head to head with Google. Mega investments into the platform, and I think they're making some headway. We're starting to see wins for them where there are businesses that have made announcements that they're standardizing on Apple Maps, like car companies and others. Now we're seeing more and more of that, so it's becoming quite a competitive thing. Whereas it was kind of a one horse show with Google before that. And I mentioned Sochi already, and I'll just mention them here again because they announced as soon as Apple put this out that they've already built the integration to the Apple Business Connect platform. And so now if you're a Sochi customer, there's an API connection between Business Connect and Sochi. And then, all of your properties, like, so if you're a franchise operator, for example, and you have, 40 locations, you can sort of manage all the locations at once in Apple Maps and Business Connect, and then also push out offers and things like that. So I think it's kind of interesting. I mean, they're catching up, right?
Yes, I think they're catching up, and I also think that it's like this is kind of an outdated topic that we've been covering in the industry for a really long time. So they are catching up on one hand, and on the other hand, it makes me think, okay, are they going to start competing with the likes of Waze, for example, right? Like pushing out those offers and those updates based on where you are, and the fact that it is embedded in their iOS, I think makes it very, very, interesting because they're able to use all the data on our devices, just like Google would do on an Android for the most part. But
we're limiting it for everybody else except for ourselves.
Exactly. But there's a little bit of a difference where you think of like Apple owns the operating system and the device, whereas Google does not always, right?
Yes.
So I think that it will be interesting to see how this scales.
Yeah, and I like that you bring up Waze. So I don't know, the announcements that are out circling around the show this week, and maybe we can talk to our friend Tim tonight
Yeah.
about it some more. But that they're going to sunset Waze now and just consolidate Waze and Google Maps into one platform. And so, what does that mean potentially in terms of competing with Apple and Apple Maps and sort of this new feature functionality? So, yeah.
I don't know. That'll be interesting choice to see like how many adopters of Waze will switch over to Google Maps. I have just recently started using Google Maps. I was always a Waze user way before Google acquisition, and now I've been using Google Maps and testing it out. But there's not a front runner for me quite yet. So.
Yeah, well, I'm like you. I've used Waze since it came out, and my current, like my new car that I got this fall comes with Google Maps built in.
Okay.
Right, and Google Voice and all that stuff, right? So you can speak and do all the things. It's all Google, and so I've been using it. Like you just punch it right in, and it like knows everything, like because it's tied into the listings, and it's got the hours, and it's got this, and it's got like all the stuff, right? So I'm like, okay, and it's easy, right? And for me, it's also easy because in my car, it's got heads-up navigation, so like the maps just sends it right into the screen, into your windshield.
You're so fancy.
I know, but whatever. Yeah. So that's it. That's our show for this week, everybody. We thank you for listening and watching. If you have story ideas, reach out to us. I did get one from somebody that we're gonna put into next week's show, so that's good. We do listen. We do take it and incorporate it. So let us know. Give us some likes and love on whichever platform you're consuming this on. I should also mention, if you are in Europe listening to this or watching this, Retail Loco is coming. Our European conference is back, second week of February in Munich. So take a look at that. Just go to the LBMA website, and you can learn all about that. And get involved and become part of the network here. Thanks everybody for listening.
See ya.
And I get to hang out. Okay.